Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show. With your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino.
Hey, guess what?
I hazard a guess.
Well, it's
I don't know what it could ever be.
It's been crazy, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're super busy getting those wonderful East amps out the door and doing your thing. And you know,
where am I?
We're right here in the old Tone Labs. That's where we are.
All right.
But we got to thank
Glad
our fans.
I got here. Yes, thank you, fans.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I know I go a little long every now and then in the beginning with all the stuff, but just go out to ampsandaxescast.com. Everything is there. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make it real simple. Mm-hmm. And when you go there, look, man, you got just not many days left. You click on the Amazon banner, you go through, you buy your stuff, they kick back to us. You don't pay any extra.
That's right.
And that's the beauty part, man.
And then you get to see all their white vans driving around.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
Oh, they got a new grocery store now. Have you heard about this thing?
Grab and go or something?
It is insane. You buy it online, you walk in, you hit it with your phone, you walk through.
It's almost like shoplifting.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
But you pay for it in the end.
Yeah. I know we're in a guitar and amp show, but I got to tell you something. You ever gone to the Apple store?
I have not.
Okay, when you go to the Apple store, you walk in and the guy goes, and you put your name on the thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then they call you and they mark you as soon as you come in because it's like, hi, I'm Tom, and I'm like, hey, Tom, and they're like, how you doing, Mick? And I'm like, oh, okay, because they say guy in whatever shirt, look for that guy, and the guy does it, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a whole system. But when you buy the product and you go to walk out of the store, you can just say, well, they go, well, would you like a receipt or do you want it to email us? Us to email it to you. So I always say, well, just email it to me. You walk out, nobody stops you. You could have, $3,000 computer and you're just walking out the front door. And I'm like, does everybody know that I just bought this?
Well, it's probably got an RFI.
Something.
That probably...
It's very neat. It
probably
weird.
gets registered when you buy something. And if not, your ass is going to ring going out the door. That's what I would guess.
It's really weird. Mm-hmm. But it's neat because it's kind of like liberating. We're so used to having that,
You're part of the family and we trust you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
They really, I don't know. If somebody knows, email us at ampaxcast@gmail.com. Tell us how that crap works, because it's like hidden world there, man. Guys pop out of the walls.
You pay for it, right?
You totally pay for it.
All right, so...
But there's not like a cash register. The guy's got his little phone. You're just doing it right there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird. There's no like checkout area. Mm-hmm. It's just the guy's like, okay, here you go.
So I was in some other store that actually did. I might have been a Best Buy or something. I think, and actually do the transactions.
Yeah, they're getting real. Everybody's going that way,
like
because
on the little thing they carry around.
Square.
Here, go.
Yeah, Square has their own thing.
Oh yeah,
it's a whole thing. Anyway,
I got one of those Square things.
Yeah.
I do.
That's right.
Yeah. I can take your transaction.
I know. Well, let's do that.
All right. I'll show you how it works.
So, we were, before we got started here, you're talking about getting some mods done to your guitar with the whole gear thing.
I have my luthier, Phil Jacoby, up in Baltimore, taking care of some of my guitars that got...
Philtone.com.
Philtone.com, yes.
That's right. Go check his stuff out.
Yeah, he's the man. He's got the Plek machine and everything.
Yeah, he refretted a guitar for me that was in absolute disarray, and
I own that guitar.
And you own that guitar, and it plays very well.
It really does. That's my go-to for.
The only reason you own the guitar is because the back of the neck was like hugging a boat, and my hand doesn't do that well anymore. Since my little
it's
thumb
not
operation.
That big. My SG's bigger.
Yeah, I know, but anything that's over.
Yeah.
It gets a little weird for me.
You need a wide flat kind of thing.
Yeah.
that SG fits the bill for you. Anyway, so yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, luckily it was only the nut, but
Yeah, the Les Paul that took the dive.
Les Paul took a face plant, and it was mid-song, and someone else knocked it over from the stand, and, you know, I couldn't stop and cry, so I just picked it up later. It was fine, but, you know, nuts cracked, so, you know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Nut, some locking tuners.
Every now and then they need a tune-up.
Oh, they were rode hard and hung up wet, man.
Yeah.
So,
so that's cool. You're going to be getting some locking gears.
Yeah. You know, I take them 3 at a time, not to overwhelm them.
So, one thing that I wanted to mention is we're probably going to, in the new year, we're going to have some new stuff beginning. I'm going to work on some things with the new intro.
Oh, yeah.
And then, and maybe even a new outro. I don't know. If you hear anything that changes, you don't be surprised. You're still on the same show.
It's still us.
Yeah. And make sure that you check out our weekly show, our midweek show, which is
This Week in Music.
That's right. Because, you find out stuff there. Look, it's a very short show. It's not like you have to commit to a long time.
Right.
But it's something that we wanted to give you to break up the week.
Around 20 minutes, give or take, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And underneath of that, you hear our good buddy from up north,
Jason Sadidas.
and he's given us the
Quick Lick.
That's right. And he has got a demo that's insane.
Yes.
For your duality.
Yeah, he's working on some cool stuff.
Yeah.
We're doing some stuff. It's cool.
That video will be on our website.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm going to put that underneath his, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Maybe I can make
figure out a way, make it good.
Yeah, maybe I'll put another page and, it'll just say East Amplification Demo or something. I don't know. We'll work it out.
Yeah, because we're
and then
working
maybe
on
like
more.
a /Godin.
Yeah.
Because we want to make, there's a little bit of love there.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he uses 15 guitars or something.
Yeah, he's going to be out at their booth at Winter NAMM.
Yeah, so definitely go by and check
if you
that out.
If you happen to be at Winter NAMM, go definitely check it out.
Yeah.
And who knows? You might see me.
Yeah. You won't see me, unfortunately.
I'm probably going to go out for a couple of days.
Are you?
Yeah.
That's good.
Take a virtual booth.
Nice. Well, speaking of the virtual booth, I'm working on a new business card for us, which has our new logo. And hopefully I will be able to get those in your hand by the time you go out there. And that way we can start throwing some cards around with the new logos. And
if all goes well, the other thing that I'll have on my other hand is the brand new wah prototype.
Well, there you go.
There you go. You heard it here first.
Uh-huh.
So,
cool. You can't beat that.
Nah, not with a stick. You can't break it anyway. So.
The guy that we're going to interview.
Yes.
This was like a little bit of a surprise to you. I guess I had not really ever mentioned this because, I'm back in my day.
True.
Right. It was a lot of Pantera, it was a lot of Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. It was the heavy metal guys.
Right.
Right. I was a fan, or is a fan. I am a fan.
Was? Am is are?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a fan of the Van Halen style, that stuff. I like those kinds of bands also. I've got a wide range, I would like to say, because I listen to everything from country all the way to the real crazy
okay, good.
Cookie Monster stuff.
Good.
I played the Cookie Monster stuff because it was it's just kind of one of those things. It was like, oh, I can do this. So it was kind of like one of those deals. It wasn't like I had some crazy obsession.
Mm-hmm.
I see some guys and I'm like, wow, that's all they listen to. I would lose my mind.
Totally.
And I don't care what style of music. You know what I mean? If you were just a jazz guy and you just listen to jazz all the time, I'd probably want to punch myself in the temple repeatedly, just because you got to have that other. I don't know. It's sort of like eating Cheerios all the time, right?
Yeah, I
you
couldn't
get
eat
kind of
Cheerios
bored
all the time
yeah.
either. Life needs.
You need that variety.
Absolutely, you need some color. Yeah. Need some color.
Look, you can't watch comedies all the time. You got to have some drama.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It's a good point. So anyway, this band, I guess I never made mention of it to you in the past, and a huge fan though I am of this band.
Okay,
not just the guitar player who's iconic,
right?
But the band,
Right.
I mean, I look at that rhythm and I go, Jesus.
They were pretty funky. They were pretty funky.
Still are.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true. But
Yeah.
when they first came out, it's like, wow, this is cool. It's rock, but it's embedded in funk.
Yeah.
And it's
What must be like if Prince went heavy metal, hard rock or something of that nature.
a little bit like that.
A little bit. Yeah.
So, we'll take the mystery away. The band that we're speaking of, it's Extreme.
Yep.
And our guest of the week is the bass player for said band. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with our guest of the week, the one, the only, Mr. Pat Badger.
This is Mark Ford, and you're listening to Amps and Axes.
Okay, and we are back as promised with our guest of the week, bassist for the little band called Extreme, Mr. Pat Badger. Pat, how are you doing, my friend?
Good. How you doing, Jeff?
Doing great, man. Doing great. So you guys are back out there doing it again, and that's awesome. And we'll get to that. But what we like to do here is we like to get a little bit of history. So we're going to jump in the Wayback Machine, and we're going to go way back to where and when Mr. Pat Badger was brought into this earth, and how you got into this great thing called music, man. So give us some history.
Well, really, for me, I was a product of the 60s.
Cool.
So, in the 70s, I was exposed to a lot of music. I had an older brother that played guitar. He still plays guitar and sings. And, so when I was young, I was exposed to a lot of Beatles and, Stones, The Who, the Eagles, so a lot of great stuff from that era. Obviously, I kind of, grew up on. And, as a teenager, I was definitely, again, I had a strong, connection to music and wanted to start playing myself. So I had a little neighborhood band, that they needed a bass player. And so I just picked up bass and just jumped right into a little, my high school band.
You said neighborhood band. Where was this? Where were you?
In Massachusetts. It's a little north of Massachusetts, a little suburban town called Winchester.
Okay, cool.
It's right near Lexington, Paul Revere, all that stuff. It has a little history to it.
So,
nice.
So
nice.
all four, and to advance to Extreme, to back when you guys started, you all four were natives of that Massachusetts Boston area, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Paul, Gary, and Gary were from Malden and Medford, and so those towns basically border Winchester. And Nuno lived a little further out west. There's a town called Hudson that's a little bit, probably 45 minutes away from us, kind of southwest of where we grew up. So
it's got that whole Aerosmith type vibe thing because all those cats were right from there. And
oh yeah, and we grew up, we kind of cut our teeth in all the same old nightclubs and stuff that don't even exist anymore. But yeah, we the same rehearsal rooms, rehearsal spaces, everything that a lot of the Boston bands, the band Boston, Jay Giles, Aerosmith, all those guys came from this area.
Good group to hang with, I'm telling you.
Yeah, for sure. It's not bad, not so bad musical influences.
Oh yeah,
that's great. Sure. You said your brother played guitar, older brother.
Yeah, my brother Jim. He still plays guitar and sings. He's a bit more of like a folk, he has an acoustic and has always been into a lot of the 60s stuff and Bob Dylan and Beatles and that kind of thing. So he rarely plays electric, but he's mostly an acoustic player and sings.
Nice. And did he pass a guitar along to you early on? He's probably a big influence.
Well, yeah, definitely. We kind of had a little a Gibson acoustic that actually had gotten kind of handed down from my aunt to my brother, and then I played it, and then again as a teenager I switched to bass, but I did start an acoustic guitar when I was young.
Very nice, very nice. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned a band needed a bass player, and that's like almost a standing joke with us. It's like if you want to be a musician and you want to be employed, play bass. There aren't enough bass players.
It's absolutely true. In fact, I know someone who works in the bass department at Berklee School of Music, and yeah, the numbers of bass players at Berklee is a lot lower than guitar players. So, if you're a good bass player, you'll always find a good gig. So
that's for sure.
Yeah, one of our past guests just recently, Bjorn England, who plays for Dio Disciples and he's now with Greg Mara and Plenty Heavy and all. The guy just was like, well, yeah, I played for the. I mean, the list was so long.
Yeah,
I was like, well, who? Just tell us who you don't play for.
Yeah, right.
Well, I know one. He doesn't play for Extreme.
Exactly.
That is true. I'll give him. I'll give the guys his number if if something ever happens to me.
There you go. There you go. So you're by the time you were in your first band, you were already playing bass. What was it a cover band, or had you and the guys started writing originals, or how did that come?
Oh no, it's definitely a cover band. I mean, we're like School's Out, Alice Cooper, I don't know, Walking the Dog, like the Aerosmith tune. Those are a couple of the first tunes I learned, stuff like that. So, it was all just cover bands. And, we'd take turns whose basement or whose garage we would play in for an hour before the cops would show up,
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. What was your first bass and bass amp? Do you remember? Do you still have it?
I don't have it, but my first bass was like a cheap, like a Fender P-Bass copy. And I remember trying to upgrade it and put new pickups in it and stuff. And I think I had like a crate amp, whatever was affordable at the time, whatever my parents probably let me buy, thinking this was just a little phase in my life. And I was going to end up collecting dust in the basement.
This too shall pass.
It's one hell
my
of a
dad and I
phase.
still talk about how I got my first job at this little, this greenery place, this nursery called Mahoney's Rocky Ledge. And I was unloading Christmas trees off of 18-wheelers. They'd throw them down to me with ice and snow in my face. And then I'd help people carry their Christmas trees out to their cars and tie them to the roof. And that was my first real job that I did because I was saving money to buy a real bass. So nice. My dad and I still talk about that.
That's great. What was your first real bass?
I was a Rickenbacker. 4001. Yeah, it was kind of like I was really into Geddy Lee from Rush, Chris Squire from Yes.
The whole prog thing.
Those are some of my favorite bass players, and so they were playing Rickenbackers at the time. So I figured that was probably a good bass to get serious with.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, if you went the Lemmy route, then you would be playing through a Marshall, but.
Yeah.
Multiple.
I've played through a Marshall, but yeah.
What
Lemmy?
And say what?
Can't go wrong with Lemmy.
No,
that's true.
Can't.
That's true. What did you gravitate to bass rig wise? Did you wind up going like all cool tube SVT, or did you wind up more like in the GK kind of family?
Well, the funny thing is I ended up going the tube route with SVTs, and the bass player always has the heaviest equipment. So the band complains about carrying them into gigs before we had roadies. But as time went on, I ended up I do have some solid state stuff now. I actually use GK, but it has like a tube preamp. Mm-hmm. So it's I can get that kind of tube sound out of it, but the power of and reliability of solid state. So
nice.
Yeah,
some cool pedals too. A lot of my tone actually comes from my pedals, and I kind of set the amp cleaner, to be honest with you. But try to emulate that tones, that tube sound.
Yeah, it's bass players. I mean, they used to have the biggest, heaviest equipment, but now, you guys, bass players seem to embrace technology more than guitar players. Not that I'm faulting that, because keep buying tube amps, guitar players, please. But, bass players now with Class D amps and neodymium speakers is like you guys walk in with a bass in one hand, 1,000-watt combo in another hand, and you're done.
Yeah.
I see it happen all the time now.
Well, even now, I don't even play as loud on stage anymore because of in-ear monitors. I get those in-ears with 5 drivers in them, and I'm shocked at how in those small little pods that you stick in your ear, you can get enough bottom that it's satisfying. So. Yeah, so I think the sound man's happy that, and Nuno's happy that I'm not, taking over the stage with the low end.
Well, that was that would be a question I would have, because I heard that that his new signature line is very loud, and I've heard that if you're standing down low and you're up front, you can hear him pretty good.
Oh yeah, Nuno definitely he moves some air up there. Yeah, he's definitely allowed. But again, I get the in-ears, so I'm I can dial in whatever I want, and they, block out a lot of outside noise. So
that's pretty good.
It's I can get an awesome mix just in my head.
Do you miss the moving air? Ruffling your pants legs?
Well, actually, I have the amp up loud enough that when I stand in front of the amp, it's the best of both worlds, because I get the clarity of the in-ears and can hear the drums great and everything. But I can feel the air moving behind me.
Nice.
But, no matter where I go on stage, anytime before I went to the in-ears, I'd if I went up by the drum riser, up on the drum riser, or over on Nuno's side, sing background vocals on his mic or whatever, it'd be like my bass amp was off. It was I just have to know that it's on and that I'm, But nowadays, again with the in-ears, it I get the same mix no matter where I go on stage. So it's been. But it is a great sweet spot when I stand right in front of the cabs and can feel the air behind me as well.
That's very cool.
Yeah, those in-ears I've heard for a lot of bands have really made the difference, because if you do what you guys are doing, you still, like you said, you get that best of both worlds thing. So it's not an emulation of your signal. You're actually you're doing that thing. But you're not A, you're not killing your ears, and B, you can hear everybody. Which, I've been in that situation. I've told Jeff this, back when I was doing my thing. You couldn't go near my bass player. He had a 1,400-watt Ampeg, and if you walked in front of it, you felt sick. And I was like, it was the last thing I wanted to do was hear him, because I knew if I was hearing it, I was going to, I was going to feel like I had to go to the bathroom. So I was like, well, stay away from him. But, now it'd be like, well, that's awesome. You can hear him, and you're not feeling like you have to take a crap.
Yeah. Well, the only guy in the band that does not use in-ears is Nuno right now. He still likes going old school, hearing his, hearing the cabs and plugging in with the cord instead of a wireless. But for the rest of us, I mean, for Gary and I, especially vocally, take the music aside, but when you sing a note, you can hear yourself without trying to sing over the loud band, and the tuning of notes, it's like going right into your head. So there's no guesswork or compensating, I'm a little flat and I gotta, sing more in tune or whatever, it's it's right there, and there's no guesswork and no, like I said, it's you're not competing with anything. It's just, it's really helped us vocally and given us a lot more stamina, even throughout the tour, because if Gary had some struggles on a show, years ago, that goes and carries forward the next day, because you kind of blew your voice out or you're tired vocally. But nowadays with the in-ears, it really helps a lot vocally.
Cool. So I guess it would, man. It's if you have the ultimate mix all the time, you know, vocally and musically, you know exactly what you're doing, and I guess it just takes a little stress out of the situation too. You know, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
And nowadays with digital consoles and stuff, you know, the monitor man, you know, he has it all stored on a little,
flash drive.
Yeah.
Flash drive, and then we show up and it's the same board, and literally the faders, you know, go and the mixes come right up as if it was last night. So
That's nice.
There's not a lot of variation from night to night. So it's really amazing how technology's changed from the old days.
Now,
For sure.
Now I have one question, Pat. Paul Gary was your first drummer, right? He was the guy that was there during the first albums and all. And he's a record producer, is that correct? He works with one of the companies?
Not a producer, he's a manager.
A manager, okay.
Yeah, so he broke another Boston band, Godsmack.
Jesus.
Paul was like involved with them from, you know, when they were playing clubs, and got them a record deal and broke them. Then he went to work for Irving Azoff for a while. So Irving's obviously a legend in the music industry.
Yeah.
Had all the biggest bands, but he's now back out on his own, and he's managing Steel Panther right now. So that's kind of his. Yeah, so he's done all right for himself on the other side of. He went to the dark side years ago. So he's not. I don't think he plays drums anymore, but he's doing well in the music business. So.
Well, you know, he was an amazing, that funk vibe, you know, that you guys carry. You know, he was right in there, and then Kevin, your guy that you have now, is like it's like seamless. I mean, I've seen you with both, and it was like, you know. That's a hard thing to find, I think, because there's only a handful of bands. I can't even think of who else would be. I guess you guys have been compared to Red Hot Chili Peppers, although you're nothing like the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Well, but thank you for saying that.
But that whole funk vibe, you know what I mean? That thing, and that's that's something that's not teachable. You know, when it comes to especially drummers and bass players, you guys have an amazing groove when it comes to that stuff.
Well, thanks for saying so, because I think that's one of the things about Extreme that kind of differentiated us from a lot of bands in our genre, was that we were more of a groove band. You know, we a lot of guys can play, technically better or more notes or, whatever than Paul or Kevin. But, there is something to be said for guys like them that, have that backbeat that, you can really groove to. And it's so much about the rhythm in the band. We grew up on, people have said that thing about the Chili Peppers where we don't really see ourselves at all like them.
No. They
are definitely way more like influenced by the funk bands like, Parliament or George Clinton and all that stuff,
Sure.
I think for us, we were more influenced by like Aerosmith had a swagger.
Mm-hmm.
Led Zeppelin had tunes that, had an amazing kind of, groove funk swagger to them. Van Halen had it, so we're definitely always felt we were a bit more like, influenced by those bands. And another kind of a hero of Nuno's was Pat Travers. Like when you hear the old Pat Travers stuff.
Yeah, it's insane.
In fact, he guested on Get the Funk Out. Like he sang vocals. I don't know if you read the liner notes and hear the bridges and Get the Funk Out is Pat Travers singing. So, so we were always kind of like, felt like we were more about the groove than,
I feel so bad because I've owned that album for the entire 20 some years that it's been out. You guys actually just celebrated the 25th year of it.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that Pat Travers sang on that song, which is one of the funkiest tunes out there.
That the bridges, you're all invited to the party. You didn't have to come.
Funny.
Those lines are Pat Travers. Yeah,
that's great.
One of the things, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to him eventually, is Nuno. Is this guy? I have two questions, actually. One is, when you met him, did you go, "Oh, this guy is going to be the next Eddie Van Halen kind of guy"? Did that come across your mind? Just the capabilities that he had?
I'll tell you the story how I met Nuno. I worked in a custom guitar shop, and I was like painting the guitars and that kind of stuff, and we were putting together some custom stuff, and so I'd meet a lot of musicians that would come in and out of the door, coming for repair work or customizing their guitars or whatever. So one day these two guys come in, and one of them was Nuno, and we're both probably like, I don't know, 18 years old, 17 years old. I think I was in high school, and he brought in a brand new Charvel Jackson guitar and asked my boss, he goes, "The guitar's kind of big for me. Can you just like trim it down for me, make it a little smaller?" He's like, "Trim it down? What do you mean?" Like, "No, just take it to the bandsaw and like saw, here." So they put a piece of like masking tape on the guitar, drew a line around the guitar, and literally, carved off like a good inch or two off the whole top of the guitar. And I'm like, this guy, either he must be really good or just like terrible and out of his mind. So I didn't even hear him play, but he had this kind of air to him of like a star quality to him, Yeah. And then there was like there was this nightclub we all used to play in Kenmore Square called Narcissus, and downstairs there was a place called Celebration. So on Wednesday nights they'd have heavy metal night. So I remember going down there, and they'd play music, between the live bands, they'd have, music pumping over the PA. And I hear the song come on. I don't even remember which one it was, but it was of his band at the time called Sinful. And the guitar was so ripping, I was like, who the hell is this guy playing? I'm like, this is like, I've never, this sounded like a cross between Yngwie and Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
And, a friend of mine said, that's this band called Sinful, and this guy Nuno, that's him. And I'm like, oh my God, I met this guy at the guitar shop, right? So at that point, I'm like, okay, something's definitely serious going on here. And then it was not long later that he had joined up with Extreme, and I went to see those guys live. And between him and Gary, I just knew that there was like something very serious going on here. And it wasn't until like a year later that I joined the band, but it was in that guitar shop where I met Nuno, and
that is so cool.
Ended up joining later.
Wow. So you weren't the first bass player, and Nuno wasn't the first guitar player then, correct?
That's true. Yeah.
Wow.
The band was started by Paul Geary and Gary, and they were called The Dream. In fact, there's an EP floating around with Gary's face on it with like this red lightning bolt through it. And the only song that came from that era of The Dream became Extreme because John Stamos, the dude, John Stamos, they were making a TV pilot about him, and he was a musician and guitar player, and he wanted to call his band Dreams. So the network actually bought the name The Dream from Gary and Paul and the band. And then that's when they became X-Dream Extreme. So,
get out of town.
So,
X-Dream.
Yeah. So, they ended up changing the name to Extreme, and they had two guitar players at the time. And, they kind of had, they definitely had a little local buzz, a little following going on. And then, I don't know, really what happened in those days. They had a falling out with the guitar players, and they weren't as serious as Gary and Paul, I guess. So Gary met Nuno along the way somehow through a mutual friend. And then, before you know it, Nuno was in Extreme. And that was kind of the birth of the band.
Wow.
Very nice.
Yeah. It's
Very
amazing
nice.
how those things fall together. And then, of course, how small each town is that he came in to have the guitar downsized.
Right.
And there's Pat.
Oh, yeah.
And then, so how long later, he's out at a club and he's like, I know that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's so
the little guy
funny.
that wanted the little guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Who plays like a machine.
And he shreds big.
Oh yeah, he shreds big time. So yeah, no, it's I think back to it, it was all kind of serendipitous. That's the word of the day.
Now, there was a period of time when the band Extreme was doing nothing. You guys were apart. Paul had, Nuno had started another band, and I forget what the name of the band was. I remember seeing it out there. I remember the documentary, the guy that was trying to put the band back together, the kid that wanted to, I don't know if it was put the band back together, but he wanted to get interviews with everybody, and you were doing something with llamas. Am I correct with that?
Well, you're in the right vicinity.
Okay. This is all from memory, by the way.
VH1 did this show, and it was called Bands Reunited.
Yes,
and
that's it.
They would basically, they'd punk you, and they'd just show up on your doorstep and put you on the spot and say, hey, would you get back together with your band? So at the time, I had an alpaca farm. So alpacas are like llamas, smaller cousins.
Yeah.
So I was actually, I got an email, and I didn't know it was VH1. They just, someone posing as, I'm going to be in town, and I'm in town with my parents, and can we stop by and see your alpacas? And I'm like, sure, so I set up a time, and I'm out there, waiting for these people. And then this whole camera crew, microphones, boom stands, lights, come walking down my driveway. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And they literally just walk up to me. Are you Pat Badger? We're VH1, and we want to know if you'll reunite with your band. One day, one night, will you do it? And so my answer was, yeah, tell me where and when. With the band, I think, I always felt like it was unfinished business. We had kind of broke up, probably 6 years before that or something. And I was definitely up for it and going, maybe this will be a spark to get the band back together. So, I guess that was kind of the whole premise of the show.
It was so funny because
So
when
cool.
I remember, and this was all from memory, by the way, so I feel pretty good that I got close with the animal.
Oh, yeah.
With the llamas.
But you were definitely taken off guard. The look on your face, I can still see it. Like, what the hell are you, what is this?
Oh, it was like literally like candid camera. They were like, they caught your expression, and every band. they did it like it was a show. I was surprised that the show actually just went one season because I watched some of the other episodes and it was very entertaining.
Yeah,
to see where they'd find some of these people. Like one guy would be like driving a taxi cab or whatever. Hey, let's get the band back together.
Yeah. Well, you were like. And the way they perceived that show, it was like it seemed like it was this college kid that was that got permission to take cameras around for VH1. It didn't even look like it was their show per se. It was almost like they picked this up from something else.
They just kind of backed it.
Yeah, and then you were surprised, and Nuno just gets up from the table he's sitting at this restaurant, just walks away. Like, yeah. I'm not speaking to you. I'm not talking to you.
He wasn't even on camera. He never even signed off to be.
Yeah, it was like, I think they showed him like the back of him walking away or something from a distance.
I don't think they showed that much. I don't even think they showed him because he didn't sign off. So
you know what? You're right. It was Gary that.
At the time, he had moved on and doing other stuff, and he's not one that likes surprises or likes to be punked like that.
I can imagine.
So that, instantly got them off on the wrong foot with him.
Yeah.
And, I think part of him, he knew that he wanted the band, at some point Extreme was going to reunite, but he wasn't going to do it on someone else's terms, or the idea that it was like this one-off show, and he felt, I guess, in hindsight, after talking to him about it, he was like, I wanted to do something with the band, and eventually I knew we would do something. But, I want to do an album and a tour and not just some stupid, reality show.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Well, I can tell you this.
Looks like he did.
Just from experience, I got to see when you guys first came back out with the new album. And I was like, it was somebody, Jeff, I don't think I've ever even told you this, because this happened prior to us even starting the show 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. It was like somebody just turned a switch back on. It wasn't even like you guys aged. I mean, it was the strangest
Nice.
thing I've ever seen, because usually, a band takes that kind of time off. Now, they were working, Nuno was doing his thing, and Gary was singing opera and stuff, right? He was like in some kind of Broadway thing, wasn't he? Or am I wrong with this?
He did a run of, he was doing Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yes, that was.
So he did that for a couple of years. One year he was playing Jesus, and then the next year he was Judas. So it was pretty wild. But and he did the Van Halen gig.
That's right.
Yeah.
With Van Halen, and toured with them for a couple of years. So I was doing my alpacas. I had a band too that I made a record with Jason Beeler from Saigon Kick. You can't even find the album now, but it was a fun project, and we had a record deal, and we made we had a song that was on the the movie American Pie. We had a song on that soundtrack, a song on that. So we were all doing stuff, and then I was psyched when Extreme got back, because like I said, it felt very like unfinished business,
Well, I tell you, I've seen bands do this though, and you can always tell there's the gears, even though they're still they're together and they sound like that band, you can just see that things have kind of ratcheted down usually, because it has time, and as you get older, not you guys. I'm like, you guys are running around. Gary is like flying all over the place, and you and Nuno and the drummer looks like it's just arms and legs everywhere. And I'm going, these guys are my age. I'm getting tired watching you, and I'm like, how did it's really different. I mean, and Jeff, you got to see this. I have the DVD from the 25 years of Pornograffiti, and it's like, it literally is like when I saw them. I saw you actually in '94 at the Lyric in Baltimore, and Saigon Kick opened up for you.
Oh, I remember those guys.
Yeah.
So it was. That's kind of funny that you said the guy from Saigon Kick was playing.
Well,
with
obviously
you.
that's how I got to know him. We toured together.
Yeah.
I always thought he was a really talented writer and guitar player.
And you actually had a horn section when I saw you that time, because it was a big enough. It was a big enough show. You had that
B-sides tour then with the horn section.
Yeah, it was that little Tower of Power thing going on.
Yeah.
And but I was like, it was literally like somebody just turn the switch back on, and there's these four guys.
I think maybe the thing is that they, I guess most, if not all of you guys, just stayed working the whole time, in music.
Yeah.
I'm sure you had your alpaca thing, but you were still doing things, right? I mean, didn't you even do something with David Lee Roth?
No, not with Dave.
No? Okay.
Yeah, but we all, like we're saying, everyone was still playing and still doing stuff musically. And, I think our band, we never really got into drugs, and, with the exception of like smoking a joint once in a while, so it wasn't, we didn't let ourselves go, put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
and we kept playing. And so when Extreme got back together, it wasn't like we had taken, decades off. It was only, maybe, well, I guess a decade off. But
that's a good long time, man, to really, I I've just, other bands. I mean, all I'm using is just the references that we have, that are out there. And it just, literally, it was like, I was like, it's just like you just picked right back up. And it was so cool. And
well, to be honest, I think the band's, and I'm not just saying this, but I think the band is playing better than ever. Than like I said, with I think when you get older, sometimes instead of letting yourself go, some people, we push ourselves to get better and sing better, perform better. And, I think back in the early days, we all felt like, we were a bit, when I look back at some of the footage and stuff, there was a lot of expended energy that was a little immature in some ways. So I think we've matured a bit, or kind of,
well, it works, man.
Well,
yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks for saying so.
Let me tell you, I've seen a lot of shows over the years. I've seen a lot of great players, and without a doubt, you got is one of the best shows I've seen, because it is just it. You just, it's like, well, no, they sing better than they did, it's like, and it's just, it's powerful, man. I mean, it really, the last time I saw you, King's X opened up for you. So that was even like, that was like a dream of mine.
Yeah, that was probably like 2007,
yes.
6,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
it was probably my last album.
Yeah, it was the last album, yeah.
Yeah. But, well, again, I think, as far as the vocals and stuff, like I said, the in-ear monitors have really helped us all, sing better. And, and you'll have to give me your PayPal information so I can send you some payments for all these kind things you're saying about us.
Yeah, man, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
I just said Roth, and you said no. Did you do something with Hagar? Why am I tying you with the Van Halen guys somehow?
Well, we've obviously gotten to know those guys. There was a time where I don't know, we were at a Van Halen show, and at the time Sammy, actually it wasn't at a Van Halen show. We did hang out with them when Sammy was in the band, but this was he had toured, on his own or with Mike, and Gary and I just jumped up on stage for one night here in Massachusetts, and we sang background vocals on When It's Love, and he actually ended up putting it on a live CD and giving us credit on the CD for background vocals, which was kind of cool. But I don't know if maybe that's what you're thinking of, but
might be.
It's all those wiki lies, you know what I mean? Those Wikipedia lies. That's what happens. It takes three people to verify.
It must be true, though.
It must be true. Must be true.
So one thing, and I don't know how much time you have left, but the bass that you play, that funky shaped bass, what is that? Well,
it's made by he's to this day one of my best friends in the world. He's almost like family to me. He's like my uncle or something, but his name's Jim Meridian, and he's the one that owned the guitar shop where I met Nuno. And that funky shaped bass, in a way, that is kind of what pointed me in this whole direction of how my life turned out this way. And it's because, it's really, I guess this is part of that story when you're asking about the, at least my own personal history of how I joined Extreme. And I was, when I was in high school, I actually moved to Texas for a while. And I told you I was a Chris Squire fan, a Yes fan. And so they had that song, Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw the video on MTV, and Chris was playing this funky, weird green bass. And I'm like, what the hell is that thing? How come he's not playing his Rickenbacker? And I'm thinking that, to myself. And and so I ended up moving back to Massachusetts when I was in high school. And one of my buddies in high school says, that bass that guy plays in Yes, the guy here in Winchester built that bass. And I'm like, you kidding me? Yeah, there's this guitar shop like down, behind the, over by the train station. So I literally walked in one day after school, and there were all the basses hanging up there, that bass. And so, that's how I ended up working there. And then ended up having a couple of them. A red one that I played is in some of the early Extreme videos, and then the black one, which I still have to this day. It's one of my favorite, basses. And so it was made here, by a guy in Massachusetts, Jim Meridian.
Look at that.
Now, are any aspects of it like the Rickenbacker? I mean, is it like a Rick neck or anything? Was it familiar to you when you picked it up and played it?
Well, they were all handmade, so they are individual. Like they're not, I guess, Jim Meridian was also a Rickenbacker fan and a Chris Squire fan. I guess the only similarity is that it's a neck through the body. It's with the glued on sides. The body is like, the horns are glued on. But no, it's a fantastic sounding and playing bass. The other thing was, before the fretboard was put on, they routed a channel like around where the truss rod is and poured like this liquid aluminum stuff that would harden. And so it was kind of, it's kind of a hybrid between something you would think of like a graphite, but still wood, that this metal was like poured into the neck. So it has very even, unique tone to it. Every note you play on the neck is very, there's no dead spots and stuff. So it's one of my favorite basses to record with. A lot of the Extreme stuff I've recorded.
Does he have a website for his stuff?
He stopped making the basses. Like they don't really do a lot as far as custom basses. But he does a lot of repair work, and like he's kind of the go-to like guru in Boston. Like Joe Perry sends all his guitars to Jim. Jay Giles, everybody from around here knows Jim, and he's like, just amazing luthier.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Mick, I don't know about you. I haven't heard any other guitars or basses being made like that, where they're actually poured metal in the neck.
No, I mean, I've heard of the carbon fiber rod thing where they do the channels, or some of the stuff like the Vigier that uses a carbon rod that runs literally from the headstock all the way down. There's no truss rod on that, but never where it was poured in. But that's pretty cool, man. I mean, he was obviously thinking ahead of his time, and to stabilize those necks. And as the new guitars get built, it's harder and harder to find slow growth trees, and you kind of need something to stabilize it, because they're baking maple now to kind of get all the oils and stuff to crystallize. And
they're cryogenically doing things to wood now.
I mean, because Guthrie Govan, I mean, he's even gone and just said, look, I've field tested everything, and baking the neck, putting the carbon fiber rods in, having a 2-way truss rod, stainless steel frets, what is he, a bone nut, he goes through all the because he's like, look, I've had 14 sets of frets on this one. I've had, because the guy, he's just a machine. And it's like, well, that kind of field testing is how it's proof in the pudding, I guess, and so it sounds like that Jim was a little bit ahead of the time.
That was a cool, innovative idea.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I mean, because wood, no matter how good it is, it can have inconsistencies within the length of it. But if you put something in there that's a known entity from top to bottom, from start to finish, I guess that gives it its consistency, and all the notes ring the same. That's very cool.
Yeah. No, it's very like rigid and sturdy. It's a great sounding bass.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, the purest
more than one.
I only have one.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, there was a time I had the red one, but I had, I made a couple of, I had an album that I made, a solo record, and I went through pledgemusic.com, which is kind of a fan funding site, and so I actually pledged the red bass.
Wow!
And a guy from Japan bought the bass, and he plays in an extreme tribute band, so the red bass is being played in the band. But, I mean, you can't make that shit up, but yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
You know, it always cracks me up with those tribute bands, how they have to have the Eddie Van Halen guitar. You know, this guy he went to great lengths to get the Pat Badger bass.
Oh yeah, it's not even like the signature model. It's my bass. The guy is psyched. Yeah,
I'd be too. Yeah, you said a lot of your tone comes from your pedals nowadays. Yep. What's your rig like nowadays? What's the amp? What are the secret Mojo pedals there?
Well, the two secret ones are they're not really secret, but the Sans amp. You know, you can't go wrong with the Sans amp. The Tech 21 pedal. Yeah, man. And then the Billy Sheehan signature, I forget what the brand it is, but it's his purple pedal there that EBS. Yeah, exactly. EBS, that's right. It's not every day that a package shows up at your door with a return label from a Mr. William Sheehan. But we had done some gigs with those guys with Winery Dogs, and he was asking me, you know, if I wanted to check it out. So he sent me one. And I plugged it in. I just love the thing. So it's got like, you know, you don't lose the, you know, when you add some grit or some distortion to it, you don't, you know, it kind of emulates his biamp sound where you don't lose or change the signal of the clean sound, but you can dial in as much nasty distortion as you want. And so it's a really cool pedal, and it has a built-in little compressor. So yeah, I've really I've been using that for a while now.
Well, Billy had to get that pedal to replace the 221U racks that he had back in the day.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing. I mean, what amp are you using for your stage monitoring? I guess
it is a GK. You know, and you know, nowadays we do a lot of fly dates or things where, if I'm not traveling with my own equipment, I'll just rent an SVT. And again, just sometimes I'll be able to, you know, GK can you know, I'm an endorser. So sometimes they'll send out some GK stuff for me, but other times I'll, you know, if that's not available, I'll just use Ampeg SVTs. And you know, a lot of the tone, like I said, is coming out of those pedals, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Amps are almost like power amps for me now, you know.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of guys, especially when they're doing fly dates nowadays. It's even guitar players. A lot of guitar players, it's exactly what they're doing. They've got their pedal board where, you know, 90% of their sound comes from, and you know, give me a Fender Twin, or, you know, give me some kind of clean palette to run through, and they're good, you know.
Sure.
Any burning questions you have for me before we sign off?
Well, we will definitely have the website up for the band, and that will live in
perpetuity.
That's right. And my only other question is, you still doing the alpaca thing?
You know, I have 3 alpacas that are mostly just pets. You know, they hang around, they eat grass and hay, and they're just kind of fun to have around, you know.
That is so cool. So,
I have a, you know, my girlfriend and I, we have a horse too, and a little farm. So it's a nice peaceful retreat when I'm, you know, it's just a very different being home than being on the road. It's nice to come home to a place that's a little more down to earth and quiet, you know.
That's awesome. Are you looking at a lot of touring in front of you still?
Well, you know, we're looking into 2017, you know, they're looking into booking some stuff. I don't have nothing right now is confirmed, but they're definitely, I'm sure the band's going to be out next year.
Awesome. If you happen to get into the Northeast area, anywhere around Baltimore, Washington area, we'll be sure and come out and check you guys out, man.
Yeah, we'll contact you.
Cool.
Very good. All right, Pat, thank you so much for taking the extra time, and have yourself a fantastic rest of the day, and good luck in anything and everything that you do, man.
Thanks, man. I got one more plug. I just put out another solo record.
Good.
And it's under a pseudonym. I made up a fictional band called the Nasty Ass Honey Badgers. And Gary is a guest on it. I get 6 different drummers. Kevin's playing on one track, you know, and then Justin Hawkins from The Darkness is also guesting on guitar and vocals on it, and it's a fun album. But you know, you guys can find it on patbadger.net.
We will have that link up too.
Yeah. So it's the Nasty Ass Honey Badger. So check it out when you get a chance.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right, Pat, thank you very much. Go do your next interview, and all the best to you, my friend.
All right. Thanks for the chat, guys.
Oh, it's been great. Thank you.
Have a great holiday. See you.
You too. Thank you. And there you have the story.
Was I too much of a fanboy on that?
No. I was surprised that you actually were that familiar with Extreme. I love those guys. Always have. I mean, geez, when Get the Funk Out came out, it's like, these guys are really cool. I love this.
Well, I think thing is that, the world was kind of wanting a new guitar hero, right? And the whole Yngwie Malmsteen thing had kind of played itself out. And Eddie Van Halen was doing the Van Hagar thing, and it was really kind of getting popish, kind of mellow, And it was like, needed that kind of hero thing. And Dimebag was doing his thing, and that was heavy, heavy metal. That was really heavy. And they were right around the same time. But Extreme was like, here's this guy, and I'm talking about Nuno. The band is incredible, but here's a guy that writes for the song, and then he does these solos that are just like, well, I don't even know. It's like, what is this guy doing? And it was almost like this rebirth of like a modern day Van Halen, in the sense of you have this really hot gunslinger there, but the guy writes for the music, and the music is not just this thing for him to wait until the solo to show off what he can do. It was like the songs were difficult. These were but they
well written, well constructed songs that if necessary had if possible had a guitar solo in them. But it wasn't just a vehicle for notes.
Exactly, and the very heavy funk bottom. It was the rhythm parts were just so well written, and then of course, amazing vocals over top of it. It was like this band that just had there was no lackeys, and Pat, even though, Nuno is this guitar icon, Pat is an amazing bass player. Just go back, listen to the albums. The guy is in a groove. He's, and he's a bass player. He's a real bass player. It's not a frustrated guitar player,
No, he started on guitar, but obviously for a very little bit of time. So it's not like he's a converted guitar player bassist. No. He's played bass pretty much his entire musical career. You know?
And just the guy we're talking, what you heard in the interview, we did a little piece before, we always do. We talked he's just an awesome dude. He's just one of those down to earth guys that, happens to play in one of the most awesome bands out there.
There you go. And it's hard to believe that it's been over 25 years since
their second album.
That was their second, right? Wasn't it?
Extreme was their first album, which
the self-titled.
Play With Me and I Don't Want to Go to School Today, Mama, I Don't Want to Go to School Today, which was shot at Hammerjacks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they shot the video at Hammerjacks for their first album. And it was More Than Words, of course, that took it to this next level. And I heard that they didn't make money even on the second album. The third album, Extreme 3, that was where they started to make some cash because they had to work their record deals and stuff. And, and Paul then
like we all know, it's a lot. There's a lot of payback.
Yeah. Now,
back in the days when you get advances and everything, there's a lot of payback going on.
Oh, yeah. Now, if just for our listeners, if you want to hear what I think is one of the better Extreme albums, even though I like them all, and Nuno's playing is spot on all of them, but the rawness was Waiting for the Punchline, which was their fourth album, and it barely got any kind of coverage. But Nuno went from playing like ADAs, he had the ADA MP1s. Yeah. Going into a power amp, going into two 410 Ampeg cabinets, right? Huh. And it was some kind of weird setup that he had, and that's what he used for the first three albums, from what I understand. Then on this fourth album, he was pretty frustrated that the band was not hitting the cylinders like it should have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this is where the turmoil started in the band. So for the fourth album, I think he used vibroverbs. And he just cranked them all the way up. Mm-hmm. So he got away from the whole ADA thing. And if you listen to that album, it's very visceral. I mean, it's very raw for them. And I think it's some of his best guitar playing because you can hear where he is just, I mean, the percussiveness of his notes is amazing. I have to let you hear that album.
Yeah, well, I mean, if there wasn't a lot of overdrive from external effects and things like that, just cranking those amps up, that's another situation where there's no masking. You got to be a good player, and if you can shred through a situation like that, man, you're good. You're precise. You're exact.
You know what? I'll let you. I'll turn you onto that thing because I don't know how many it sold. I don't think it did very well at all on the market. And,
I'd love to hear it.
I think you'll be impressed with that. But
very cool.
Anyway, yeah, man. So until next time, my friend.
Because we got them coming.
I'm Mick Marcelino.
And I'm still Jeff Bober.
And we're always saying,
onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @AmpsandAxes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.